Welcome to Material Girls Long Arm Quilting. This is video 4 in our series about the value of the quilt. If you haven't watched the introduction or the other 3 videos in this series, I invite you to also have a look at them and see what else I have to talk about the value of a quilt. Today's topic is the love that is sewn into every stitch of every quilt. When we make quilts, most quilters have at least an idea of who the quilt is going to, whether it's for charity or a treasured family member, a great friend, or even for ourselves. Because we have at least a little bit of an idea of who is going to enjoy or be kept warm by our quilts, a little bit of extra goes into everything we do as we cut and place and stitch to create something that is transformed from the basic fabrics that we start with. Even if we don't do it intentionally, that little bit of love and good intention seems to bring out just that little bit extra in our work. You can show your love to those that you gift the quilt to through the choice of fabrics, the design, or even special touches that are designed just for them, including customizing the quilting. That's something that I helped a customer do on this quilt. Check out that border, which just jumped out as something special to my customer. Then you have the tractors marching across the rest of the quilt. My customer's comment was that it was just the right touch for that farming quilt. I have even done custom writing on quilts for several customers, from including a unique quote about dancing to commemorating a graduation from university. Sometimes I even get to put their names on it, or where they graduated from, or some other little detail that's very unique to them. You have the chance to add something a little special at any stage of the creation process. When you gift a quilt, you give the recipient the chance to snuggle in the love of the maker. This is one of my favorite ways to think about quilts, especially for those quilts that are passed down in the family, where the family members perhaps never even met the person who did the actual work, such as in this quilt behind me. This is one you've seen in other videos. It was something that my great-grandmother created, and I never had the chance to meet her because she passed away long before I was born. And so having this lovely quilt is something that I can use to think back on my family and to imagine the times when she probably worked on this under a coal oil lantern, or maybe with a group of friends to do all the hand stitching on this. This is something that is quite a treasure from my family, and I really appreciate it. My great-grandmother made this quilt nearly 100 years ago, and it has been kept safe until it's made its way to me. I was given this quilt when I had my very first apartment, and it is something that has meant a lot to me ever since. Grandparents often find themselves making gifts for their grandkids. These gifts always carry a lot of love in them as well. They may be bed quilts, wall hangings, decorations, or even those cute little doll quilts that little ones use when they're playing with their dolls. Those grandkids are such lucky little, or maybe not so little anymore, people to be getting these lovely gifts, and I'm sure they know the love that is sewn into the projects that are made for them. Young children also often get our special attention. Some of the ways that we show love include giving something that can be used while they grow up. Activity quilts are popular, such as I Spies, Find the Pairs, game boards, and more. I've even seen panels with popular board games printed on them in recent years, like Snakes and Ladders and checkerboards. Those make great picnic or floor blankets when sewn into a quilt. Of course, there are always special occasions for us to make quilts for and pass the love on to the special people in our lives. You can make wedding gifts, graduation gifts, baby gifts, and thank you gifts for anything somebody has done for you. They can be personal or even community quilts like I talked about in the last video. Memory quilts are another type of quilt that comes with a lot of love and is a very special type of quilt. I have had the privilege of quilting several of these for my customers. It is always a very special experience to help enhance the special items of clothing or pictures or even
like these hand crocheted hankies that are put into these quilts.
Even if you cannot emotionally handle the work of creating the quilt top yourself and have somebody else do it for you, having those special mementos made into something special has a lot of meaning for those who remember the loved one. That is truly an act of love to create something like that. Another way to incorporate your love into your quilts is to represent a person in the design or the quilting. For example, if your dad was an electrician, maybe including a lightning bolt or a light bulb or a light switch or something would be a really cool way to make it have much more meaning about that person. If it's for a teacher, you can add something like books, a globe, or apples. And this can be in the piecing, in applique, it can be in the quilting and the stitching on it. There's so many different ways to incorporate those special touches. And this is how one of the ways that you can show that you're thinking specifically of them when you create the quilt. Won't they feel so loved having something made just for them? I love stories about how quilts show and spread love in people's lives. A friend of mine has a great many amazing stories about quilting, and I have the privilege of being able to share some of them with you guys. This is a story about how love can shine through in a quilt, even beyond the original recipient. She said to me, "When my grandson was very young, I made him a small 3D quilt in astrology." I think she meant astronomy. He loved it for years, but felt that he had outgrown it. He was trying to decide, could he give it away? Would Grandma be upset? Who would want it? But I kind of want to keep it, he thought. In conversation with his parents, his stepdad said, "I have a friend whose son is into astronomy. He's 5 years old. Maybe you'd like to give it to him." My grandson thought that was a great idea and gave it to his stepdad to give to his friend, who took it home to his son. He was met at the door by a very tearful boy who had just lost his dog that day. Dad picked up his son, sat him on his knee, and wrapped the boy in his new quilt. The moment was perfect. Over the next few weeks, that quilt was hugged and loved as the boy was going through his period of mourning. It made my grandson feel so good that he had sent something to a complete stranger he didn't even know, but would love the same way he had when he was 5. When I heard this, I gave way to tears. A quilt is a gift of comfort to both the recipient and the giver, not to mention the maker in this case. So rewarding. I love stories like that. It is such a beautiful, heartwarming thing to hear. Do you have stories of how the love of a quilt has had an impact on somebody you know or who is in your life? Please share your stories with us below, or send me a message or email if you don't want to post it below. I would love to share with everyone else, anonymously if you prefer. And these stories are so touching and really help us to know why we complete these creations and how they can have such an impact on others. What a great gift this love is. It can bring a sense of well-being, as well as being a comfort in times of sadness, fear, and the trials of life, as well as in the happy times. How wonderful for that little boy to be able to feel the love coming through several different people, and such a great act of generosity. Join me next time as we explore heirloom quilts and the legacy they embody. And of course, it would really help me out if you click like and subscribe to my channel. Maybe even share with a friend if you think they might be interested. You can also check out my website if you're looking for a professional long arm quilter or just want to see what I do.